If you are listening to this, the algorithm has done its job. And if you live on the third floor or higher, I strongly advise you to lock your door right now. This isn't a threat, it's a matter of statistics. We all think our apartment is a sanctuary, a sealed box suspended above the void. We forget that beneath our feet there are pipes, ventilation shafts, and elevator cages, empty spaces, spaces that belong to no one. 3 days ago, I realized those spaces have their own logic. And since then, I haven't dared to turn off the lights. It all started because of a phone update, one of those native apps you can't delete, simply called Wi-Fi Direct. Usually it does absolutely nothing, but Tuesday night around 2 in the morning, my screen lit up. A notification floated against the black background. An unknown device is attempting to share a file with you. The device name was a string of zeros, 00000. I declined it. My apartment is isolated. My closest neighbor is a silent student at the far end of the hallway. 2 minutes later, another vibration. The exact same request. I declined again. On the third attempt, my thumb slipped. Tired and frustrated, I hit accept. The screen flashed pure white, and then a raw text file opened. There was only a single line written in a harsh, blocky font. There is too much air in your room. At the time, I thought it was a prank, some script kiddie hacker messing around with the building's network. I locked my phone and tossed it onto the nightstand. That's when I noticed the silence. You know the usual sounds of an old building at night. The hum of the fridge, the distant creaking of the floorboards, the wind whistling against the window pane. Now there was nothing, an absolute void. It felt as though the air around me had grown heavy, dense, almost solid. I sat up in bed, my eyes adjusted to the darkness. The living room is visible from my bedroom through an open archway. In the deepest corner, right by the bookshelf, the shadow looked different. It was less transparent, darker than the dark. A sharp vibration shattered the quiet. My phone. A new message from 00000. Do not move. Compression is in progress. My heart skipped a beat. I wanted to swing my legs out of bed and turn on the overhead light, but my feet never touched the floor. A sound froze me solid. A faint, wet suction noise right above my head, like the sound of a suction cup being slowly peeled off a glass window. Plop, then a heavy, sliding drag. Something was crawling against the plaster of the ceiling directly over my bed. I couldn't see anything. That was the worst part. The darkness was absolute up there, but I could smell it. An odor of ozone and burnt dust, the kind you breathe in when you open up an old, filthy computer tower. The smell of overheating machinery. The dragging sound shifted toward the back wall. The noise was dry, geometric. It wasn't the footsteps of an animal, nor the brushing of a human body. It was the sound of rigid joints snapping into the drywall. Click, click, click. With every single impact, a fine layer of white dust drifted down from the ceiling, settling onto my sheets. I could feel it grit beneath my fingertips. My phone buzzed again. The brightness of the screen stung my eyes. You are breathing too fast. You are wasting space. In that exact moment, I understood. This wasn't an intruder. It wasn't a man. The building itself was saturating. The spatial management algorithms, the invisible networks running through our walls, everything had glitched out. My apartment was no longer a room, it was a file being compressed to free up memory, and whatever was on the wall was the cleanup tool. The clicking stopped right above my bedroom door. I was trapped in my bed. To get out, I would have to walk directly beneath it. In the pitch black, 2 dots began to materialize. They weren't eyes. They were 2 tiny, perfectly square blue lights, exactly like the LED diodes on an internet router. They blinked in perfect synchronization with my own breathing. When I inhaled, they flared bright. When I exhaled, they nearly died out. A terrible, crushing pressure began to squeeze my eardrums, the way it feels when a plane drops in altitude too fast. The walls gave a deep, structural groan. The floorboards flexed slightly, pressing tighter and tighter against one another. The space was shrinking, physically. The ceiling suddenly felt lower, horribly low. Panicking, I threw my blanket aside and bolted for the door. The moment I crossed the threshold, something brushed against the back of my neck. It wasn't a hand and it wasn't claws. It was a freezing cold, flat surface, textured like the molded plastic of a printer, vibrating with an intense mechanical hum. It ripped a few hairs straight from my scalp. I screamed, slammed hard into the hallway wall, and scrambled wildly toward the front door. My hands were shaking so violently it took me 10 whole seconds just to turn the deadbolt. Behind me in the living room, the suction sound grew deafening, turning into a high-pitched, shrieking hiss, like an industrial vacuum swallowing the emptiness. I yanked the door open, lunged out onto the landing, and slammed it shut behind me. I sat there on the cold tile of the building's hallway until sunrise. The neighbors started leaving for work around 7 in the morning. They gave me bizarre looks, standing there in my underwear, shivering uncontrollably. I didn't care. I just stared at my front door. When the sun finally flooded through the hallway windows, I found the courage to go back inside with the building manager. I had called for help. The apartment was empty, but it was different. The manager didn't notice a thing, but I know. I measured. The entryway corridor is shorter by 4 inches. The bookshelf no longer fits quite right in its corner. It overlaps the window frame. And on my bedroom ceiling, directly over my bed, the plaster is marred by a long, perfectly straight streak of gray dust that stops dead right above the door. The manager told me the building was just settling, that it's normal for an old structure. I pretended to believe him. I moved back into the apartment because I have nowhere else to go. My savings are tied up, but I don't sleep anymore. I spend my nights sitting on a chair in the exact center of the living room, right where the streetlights illuminate the floor. Why am I telling you this? Because an hour ago my phone vibrated. I didn't get a text message this time. Instead, my cloud storage app opened all by itself. It displayed a progress bar syncing my account. The prompt read, "Floor 4 processing complete. Preparing for export." I live on the 4th floor. And just a few moments ago, the suction sound started up again, not from my ceiling this time, right beneath my feet.